produced in high definition by Fox 50. Viewer discretion is advised. Tonight, a missing student from Terry Sanford High and the unsolved murder of Bonnie Neighbors. NC Wanted in high definition starts now.
Good evening, I'm Gerald Owens. Welcome to another edition of NC Wanted. The majority of tonight's show is dedicated to the legendary unsolved murder of Bonnie Neighbors of Johnston County. But before we get to that, we need to tell you about an ongoing investigation involving the mysterious disappearance of a gifted Fayetteville teenager.
My little girl, my firstborn, represented an opportunity for me to get a clue about being a parent, let alone a father.
During the first years of her life, Pamela Michaels Walder is almost given up for adoption. Her maternal grandparents step in and raise her at their home in Washington State. But by age 14, Pam is fast becoming a young woman. She's also developing an intimate, some say obsessive relationship with her biological father. She makes a dramatic move across the country, all the way to Fayetteville, so she can be with the father who didn't raise her. He's Robert Joseph Bo Garcia II, otherwise known as Bo.
It was very good in the beginning. I'd say the first 2 to 3 months were extraordinary.
Within 2 years of moving in with Bo, Pam disappears, and family members disagree on what happened.
Steve and I both talked to her on Friday the 21st, and that's the last contact we've had with Pam.
Pam is a bright student. She carries a 4.0 GPA and plans to attend an Ivy League school. But inexplicably, she disappears, reportedly last seen by her father on Saturday, January 22nd, 2005. He says she ran away, but her maternal grandparents don't buy it.
If she would have left the house, first of all, she would have called us. Here's a person that normally would call 3 to 4 times a week to us. And she would call me at work. She would call me on my cell phone to tell me special things that were going on.
The night before she disappears, Pam goes to a dance with her boyfriend, 16-year-old Harrison Hurley. They have a good time, but when she comes home that night, the fun is over. Bo says he and Pam get into one of their worst arguments ever.
I didn't think that I would ever see her that angry in my life.
The night of her disappearance, Pam speaks by phone with Harrison Hurley around 7:30 p.m.
It was just a normal conversation like we normally have.
He tries to call her again around 10 o'clock, but this time she doesn't answer.
There wasn't any talk of her leaving or anything. It was just a nice conversation talking about the night before, laughing, joking.
According to Bo, the day after her disappearance, he enters Pam's room and sees that she's gone. He then calls police. Within 48 hours, Pam's coat and backpack are found on a remote area of Fort Bragg. Police say the coat is neatly folded and the bag is placed on top.
A lot of people are looking at the backpack like a kind of smoke and mirrors thing, kind of distracting people over in that area, while something might have been happening on the other side of town.
Pam is immediately considered missing and endangered, and police begin their search. Her family in Washington State offers a $10,000 reward for information leading to her safe return.
I placed the blame on myself because it's my daughter. And I don't think that she would have left if I had done better as a dad.
Police say Pam had a personal prepaid phone card, a debit card, and access to frequent flyer miles. But investigators have found no evidence her accounts were used after her disappearance.
They found the bag and they didn't find Pam. And her wallet was intact. We knew something horrible had happened. It just didn't feel right.
Pam was typically a very happy, even-keeled person, and quite frankly, had very few lows until she started obsessing about being with her father.
If you were watching the CBS drama Without a Trace last night, you may have seen this photo of Pamela Walder.
Pam's case has been publicized nationally, but to date, no one has come forward with information. Although it remains a missing persons case, police admit they are considering foul play.
And describe her father as a person of interest.
I think everybody who has some sort of contact with her is a person of interest. Now, can I say they're a suspect? No, because then that would imply that there's a crime that was committed. In order for the case to be brought to resolution, Pam needs to be located. She needs to be identified and located.
If you have any information about Pamela Michaels Walder, call our hotline toll-free at 1-866-43-WANTED or go to ncwanted.com and click on Report a Tip. Your identity will be kept confidential.
Coming up.
We were told there was plenty of evidence there.
There's not one scintilla of evidence around anywhere that any particular person that we know of anywhere committed that murder.
He can be saw.
Tonight's NC Mystery, the case of Bonnie Wheeler Neighbors, is next.
Tonight we come to you from downtown Benson, home to Mule Days, an annual celebration that can flood this town with as many as 70,000 people. But for the remainder of the year, people who call Benson home know it as an idyllic setting for a quiet, safe, small-town lifestyle. Some even call this place the land that time forgot. But in early 2007, a sleeping giant was awoken and painful memories revived. Sheriff Steve Bizzle of Johnston County made a surprise announcement that he was reopening the 1972 unsolved murder case of Bonnie Wheeler Neighbors. Back then, this case shocked the entire town and put all residents on alert. Tonight, we'll give you another look at this famous case. You'll hear from family members who have gotten older but remain hurt and angry, not just about Bonnie's murder, but about what they say investigators on the ground were telling them at the time, that even though they knew who killed Bonnie, a higher authority was shutting down their investigation. And in our exclusive interview, you'll hear from the decision maker, who was Attorney General during those key years of the investigation. Tonight, the former Attorney General warns that people better be careful what they say, because reputations are at stake.
I remember the last thing that she told me, and she said, "I'm the happiest I've ever been, Rachel. I've always wanted to have another child, and I've always wanted to have a new home, and the Lord has seen fit to give that to me, and I've never been as happy in my life."
Everything was fine as far as I knew. He was happy, I was happy.
It's been 35 years, but memories of Bonnie Wheeler Neighbors are vivid and keep Kenneth Neighbors up at night. He thinks about that day, trying to make sense of it. December 14th, 1972. Bonnie leaves the house on this Thursday afternoon with the couple's 4-month-old son to pick up her older son from school, but she never arrives.
Well, she left the house, and according to the milkman, who was just coming by, he was our milkman, she pulled out in front of him real fast, and that was the opposite direction of the school. And from there, I don't know where she went, but she had to have gone somewhere or met someone or something, and the rest of it progressed badly.
Ken is an accountant and has built a successful business for himself with offices in Benson and Morehead City. He comes home on weekends but spends the weekdays in Emerald Isle working on the town's books. He's about to get a bite to eat when his father calls on a Thursday evening. He tells Ken Bonnie never arrived to pick up their oldest son from school that day, and they don't know where she is. The baby is with her. Her station wagon is found the following morning.
I remember once I heard that news, I thought, okay, they found the car, she's got to be someplace. And then all day Saturday, we waited.
The entire town is in a state of panic. The media goes into a frenzy, and police search on horseback. National Guard helicopters circle overhead while her family waits. Temperatures drop over the 3 days Bonnie and her baby are missing. By Sunday, they hover in the mid-20s.
It was raw cold.
We were assured that she would be found. We just thought it's just a matter of time she's going to be found.
On Sunday, a local farmer's son joins in the countywide search. He hears a baby crying in a migrant labor camp several miles outside of town. He tracks the sound and finds Bonnie, sprawled on a cot, fully clothed, her 4-month-old son Glenn crying beside her. She was bound and gagged with cloth diapers, struck on the head and shot twice in the abdomen with a .25 caliber handgun. Investigators think she was killed within hours of her disappearance.
One of my friends took me back home, and I just waited in the bedroom. In a little while, my cousin's husband came in and told me she was dead. I was completely overwhelmed. I didn't know who to be angry with.
They took Glenn to a hospital. So I asked one of my friends to take me to the hospital to see him, because I hadn't seen him. So that again was not the way you'd want to see your nephew.
Many wonder how a baby could have survived for 3 days without food in those frigid temperatures. Doctors say it is medically possible, but some locals speculate the killer cared for the baby that weekend.
To know that he was strong enough through cold weather to survive. Possibly Bonnie had something to do with that. Her will went into him to survive.
I'm sure she was scared. I don't know who she was with or what, but I'm pretty sure she was scared.
Bonnie bites her fingernails. She always did. And I was told by one of the people, the investigators, that her right hand, her fingernails were bit right up into her cuticles. And they had looked as if they had been bleeding.
The community is horrified, and the story quickly prompts a public outcry. Nothing like that had happened before in Benson, and nothing like it has happened since.
It was back in 1972. You didn't see state officials and you didn't see the medical examiner arriving on crime scenes in a helicopter.
The investigation progresses quickly from the moment Bonnie and the baby are found. Agent Roger Allen of the State Bureau of Investigation is working weekend duty and is called down to Benson the afternoon Bonnie is found. Allen and his partner immediately begin searching for a band of hippies who people had seen in the area. The agents begin to amass notebook after notebook of interviews, evidence, and leads.
A lot of people thought that some fly-by-nighters, maybe the hippies had done this or just whatever. And that was referenced in, the investigative file.
It went on and on and on, and they never came up with anything.
Within 3 years of the murder, a reward for information leading to the killer tops $20,000, unheard of in those days. Investigators struggled to piece together a motive. There was no evidence of sexual assault, and although her wedding rings and purse were stolen, robbery is considered unlikely as a primary motive. Community members form a Bonnie Neighbors Committee, which takes tips on a hotline and passes them along to the SBI. Agents interview nearly everyone in town and have many of them take a lie detector test. Investigators are baffled by conflicting stories, rumors, and red herrings. Then, 6 months after Bonnie's murder, a credit card stolen during the crime is used twice in Florida to make purchases totaling less than $20. It's never used again. Investigators don't know if the use of the card was an effort to throw them off the trail. Agent Allen speculates it could have been discarded by Bonnie's killer, found by someone else and used.
The police department in Benson, the SBI, they were just working diligently. And I know, and I was told, that they worked very hard night and day. They took it home with them to try and solve this.
The investigation continues for 2 more years with peaks and valleys and a rotating handful of SBI agents. In the late 70s, then Attorney General Rufus Edmiston forms an unsolved murder task force, motivated primarily by the Bonnie Neighbors case. As Attorney General, part of Edmiston's responsibilities included overseeing the SBI. He remembers getting personally involved with this case while in office. He recently agreed to speak with us about it.
Oh, here was this very attractive young mother of 2 children. Big mystery. Of course, Benson being a very small town, everybody became a suspect. Everybody was interested in it. It tore things apart.
The task force appointed by Attorney General Edmiston works the case for months, and unlike previous tries at solving it, they focus on a local man.
What really sticks in my mind after reviewing the case, reading all of the interviews that were done, one thing that sticks in my mind is the proximity of the location of this murdered mother and this young child to a suspect at the time that this occurred. I think that's the key.
We were told by the SBI and other investigators that was very close to being solved.
It's now the late 1970s, more than 5 years since Bonnie Neighbors was abducted and shot. Her body found in a migrant labor camp in Benson, where she was left to die while her 4-month-old infant cried beside her. The case remains a source of gossip and near obsession in Benson, a source of anguish and frustration for her husband, Kenneth Neighbors.
Every night. You wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock and you go through it again and again and again. What did I miss, or what did I do or not do?
As work on the case and the focus on a local man continues, the families say 2 agents working on the Attorney General's task force, Ron Keene and Wade Anders, come to the families' homes and discuss their progress.
The agents told me they knew who did it.
Edmiston remembers things much differently. He tells us, quote, "I lost a couple of friends over it. Oh yeah, there was a strong political family down there, and we interviewed one of my supporters' brothers who lived out on this horse farm. And oh, they just came up here on me. Oh, they tore me to pieces, and I never regained their friendship after that, but we had to do it. It was possible he could know something about it," unquote. Edmiston goes on to say he personally asked the local man to take a polygraph, but he refused. And not long after that, tempers flared at a funeral for a wealthy Benson resident during the late 70s.
That day at the cemetery, I got cussed out by Bonnie Neighbors' kinfolks for not going hard enough, allegedly, on that individual that they all speculate on. And then at the same damn funeral, his sister-in-law crawled me. And I told that SBI agent beside me, I said, "This ain't worth it, man." I said, "Let's get the hell home. I'm gonna have a drink. I'm getting out of this damn little hellhole down here." I said, "This place is worse than anything I've ever seen in Peyton Place or any of them." I said, "I go to a damn funeral, and both of them are on me. I was one of the worst days of my life. I mean, they were just, and then the other side come at me. Anyway, funny. I'll put that in my book someday."
Passions run at an all-time high, and the families anxiously anticipate an arrest. Then investigators pay them a visit with some disappointing news.
Yeah, it stopped at the end of the week, 1 week. On Friday, they told me they had quit then, or stop the investigation, or not continue, whatever. Not that they didn't want to, but apparently they were told to.
We understood that they were asked by some higher person that was in charge of the SBI to get off the case. They needed to get off the case.
As Attorney General, Rufus Edmiston oversaw the SBI. He flatly denies any role in shutting down the investigation. He says it just petered out.
Nothing ever came from my office or any of my deputies. It would just, I remember Max said, "Look," I remember he threw his hands up and he said, "Boss, done all I can do. I've just gone back and forth, done all I can do." I said, "Well, Max, it's up to you." I do remember that very distinctly. He didn't have a hair on his head. He looked like a skinny Kojak.
The investigator he's referring to is Max Bryan, who is now deceased. But for those still living, the controversy and the pain live on.
And I think some people that are making a lot of wild statements right now in this case ought to reflect back and be very careful, because you ruin somebody's reputation. There's no department you go to get your reputation back. So there are too many things being said and still said by various people about who might have committed this murder. And the truth of the matter is that there's not one scintilla of evidence around anywhere that any particular person that we know of anywhere committed that murder. I wish I knew. I hope I don't go to my grave not knowing.
We were told there was plenty of evidence there.
The agents told me they were 99.9% sure. And they didn't know why he wasn't brought to trial.
So, nearly 35 years later, Bonnie Neighbors' murder remains unsolved, and two families' pain remains fresh. Ken Neighbors says his hope for justice has nearly faded away, but the sheriff has just reopened the case, adamant that it can be solved.
I've got an opinion. A lot of others have got an opinion. A lot of others opinions that I've heard, ironically, it's the same opinion that I have. We can't convict someone on my opinion, but we can convict on personal knowledge, or we can, it can be solved.
And if the day ever comes that someone is carried off in handcuffs, Ken Neighbors has no idea what he will say after all this time.
I don't think I would want to talk to someone who was that cruel to someone. I don't know what I could say that would make me feel better or him feel worse.
As you just heard, people in the story were referencing a local man. We were careful not to reveal his identity since he was never officially named a suspect. Also, we point out in the story that although Bonnie had not been sexually assaulted, investigators tell us her autopsy proves that semen was found inside her body on that Sunday, December 17, 1972. Her husband Ken also confirms he had left town 1 week earlier on December 10th, and that was the last time he saw Bonnie alive. Okay, so where does the case stand now? Sheriff Steve Bizzle and his cold case squad are working to figure out who should be ruled in or who should be ruled out. The North Carolina SBI has also gotten involved in this reopened investigation. If anything breaks in this case, we'll tell you about it the very next broadcast. And be sure to check our website at ncwanted.com. And stay tuned every week as we bring you the latest on this and other cases important to our area. If you have any information you believe could be helpful, call us toll-free at 1-866-43-WANTED or log on to our website at ncwanted.com. No tip is insignificant, and you don't have to reveal your identity. Remember, together we can fight to protect the quality of life we hold dear in North Carolina. I'm Gerald Owens. Thanks for watching.